Good afternoon, guys. This is Kenya again. I'm on lunch break in my little secret place in this building, just doing my reading. Um, I don't know why, but something has made me go back to this chapter in the Bible. This is Psalm 78, and this pretty much sums up what happened in the Old Testament. So I wanted to share this with you guys. I know I haven't been on here in a minute. I had a lot of things coming up in life, and you know how life does things to get your attention. But my attention belongs here, and I am going to share this chapter with you. So let's read. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord, and his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might see their hope in God, and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God, and refused to walk in his law, and forgot his words and his wonders that he had showed them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zon. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as an heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as out of the great depths. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spake against God. They said, Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, he smote the rock, that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord heard this, and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in God, and trusted not in his salvation. Though he had commanded the clouds from above, and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. He caused an east wind to blow in the heaven, and by his power he brought in the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea. And he let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about their habitations. So they did eat, and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not estranged from their lusts, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them, and slew the fattest of them, and smote them down, the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still, and believed not for his wondrous works. Therefore their days did he consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and inquired early after God. And they remembered that God was their rock, and their high God their Redeemer. and the high God their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouths, and they lied unto him with their tongues. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in their covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned he his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were flesh, a wind that passeth away and cometh not again. How oft did they provoke him in the wilderness, and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they turned back and tempted God, and limited the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy, how he had wrought his signs in Egypt, and how his wonders in the field of Zon, and had turned their rivers into blood, in their floods, that they could not drink. He sent divers sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillar, and their labor unto the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath and indignation, and trouble, by sending evil angels among them. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to the pestilence, and smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tabernacles of him, but made his own people to go forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely, so that they feared not, but the sea overwhelmed their enemies. And he brought them to the border of his sanctuary, even to this mountain which his right hand had purchased. He cast out the heathen also before them, and divided them an inheritance by line, and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tents. Yet they tempted and provoked the Most High God, and kept not his testimonies, but turned back and dealt unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow. For they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their graven images. When God heard this, he was wroth and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which he planted among men, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hand. He gave his people over also unto the sword, and was wroth with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given to marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. Then the Lord awaked as one out of sleep, and like a mighty man that shouted by reason of wine. And he smote his enemies in the hinder parts, but put them to perpetual reproach. Moreover, he refused the tabernacle of Joseph, and chose not the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion which he loved. And he built his sanctuary like high places, like the earth which he had established forever. He chose David also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. From following the ewes great with young, he brought him to feed Jacob his people, and Israel his inheritance. So he fed them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. So yeah, I choose to read that to you guys today, because that summed up a lot that happened in the Old Testament. The Old Testament. I don't know what's going on with me and my words today. So some of those words, it would probably do you some good to look them up in the dictionary like I did, so you can get a better understanding. I don't trust anything other than the King James Version, because when you read different Bibles, it kind of switches the words up, and it kind of take away, and I don't like that, because I want to hear it, and I want to read it exactly how God intended for us to read it. And I don't know. I prefer the King James Version, but you know, I guess it's your own preference. But that summed up everything. Like, the Israelites constantly messed up. They kept asking for more things. They were never satisfied. They were all in their flesh, and they just never accepted what God gave them. Like, they always was, from what I feel and what I read and what I read, they always seemed like they was just only there for the good. When he gave them what they asked for, they were happy. But then they always came up with something else. Well, can you do this? Can you do that? Well, can you do that? You know what? Or let me sneak and worship this other god or this other goddess. Like, God, he wasn't going to see it. Like, he wasn't going to know that that's what you were doing. That's why he called some of these people whores. Not the way that we think of it today, but they were called whores because they were cheating on him with other gods. So I encourage you guys to continue reading. I am going to continue to do what I can. I'm going to continue to read some of these chapters. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I don't intend on doing these things. I get up and sometimes I do my normal daily routine, and sometimes I have an urge inside of me to come on here and to share some scripture. So I don't care if just one person see it. As long as I complete my assignment, I feel good for the day. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day today. Try to get some reading in. Make sure you pray. And I will see you soon. And we'll spend lunch together again. Thank you guys. Bye.